Welcome to the Roswell Business Podcast. Today we speak with Ann Baker, hearing about her life, her businesses, and wise words to live by. Enjoy. All right, so thank you so much for interrupting your week, your time. As you know, I've had the benefit of sharing space with you on different events, on a local board here in the city. Your thoughts and your things about our city and its success, and the fact that you even put a stake by, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but putting in a business in downtown in our city, and just the impact that does, and makes a really neat statement about who you are and what you believe in. And I think it was probably 6 or 7 years ago that you and I first got a chance to really chat at your store. I actually just came over because you were opening, and
you had long curly hair.
Yeah. As an artist, sometimes you do fun things, and I just wanted to do it. It's a lot of work and craziness, so I just don't do that anymore. But good memory.
Well, you've gone short, I've gone long.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk about all that, as you know. Tell us a little bit about Ann. And who you are, what makes you tick, just.
Okay, well, I'll try to keep it short.
Okay.
And I'm sure we can delve into the details, but I'll just touch on the facts. How about that? So I'm an Air Force brat. I grew up moving all over the country, mostly in the East Coast. My dad was, he was a career Air Force person. He started out as a pilot when was in the war, Vietnam War. And because of his expertise, he worked at the Pentagon a lot. So we moved back and forth around Washington, D.C. A few times. So probably my most formative years were around that area. Sometimes we lived in Virginia, sometimes we lived in Maryland. But the school system there is excellent. I feel like I was very fortunate to be able to be exposed to that. And I also got to see these older East Coast cities go through their renaissance over and over again, because it seemed like everywhere we moved, it was just like starting there. And
what do you mean? And I don't want to totally interrupt you, but what do you mean by going through a renaissance?
Well, they had, the suburban flight had happened, so the downtown areas were vacant and falling apart.
Okay.
That was my growing up. That's what I kept seeing in downtown areas.
Wow.
But as I got into high school, it became a more popular, the people were realizing the value in these historic structures downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And they started to bring in cool, interesting things that made younger people want to come downtown.
Yeah.
And not just come downtown, but to move downtown. And it's, this has been going on, I'm not young, so in high school, 30 years ago, it kind of started in certain places. I'm not really sure where it started, but it seemed like everywhere we moved, the city was starting to realize what treasures lay from their past, what was there from their history.
So here you are.
They were uncovering it.
Student, just being able to kind of observe and see it happen while you're growing up.
Because I'm a history, I love history.
Okay.
I love just imagining what happened in these old buildings and how they evolved from horse and buggy to where we are now. And my most recent, in high school, we moved to Dayton, Ohio. Dayton, Ohio, when we moved there, had just, and National Cash Register Company had just closed. It's a very blue collar town.
Yeah.
There were several other large corporations, like I think GM had just closed. There was a lot of decay downtown. A lot of people feeling like they lost their jobs and were suffering. And my dad being in the Air Force, it didn't affect him. He was working. And so were all the other, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base there is huge. So my friend and I started to explore when we got our driver's licenses, and we explored downtown Dayton, and we found these little pockets. One was the Oregon District, which you may have heard of recently. There was a mass shooting there. It's a very popular downtown area in Dayton. Well, that was just starting out. I mean, like there was a really awesome Goodwill store there that had the best books. And there was a cool little pub that we were able to stop into. And those were like the two things there. And eventually they renovated the arcade that had been there since 1850. And my friend and I experienced that in high school. It was this was us discovering what is fun about Dayton, Ohio, and not just the fact that people have lost their jobs and it's falling apart.
Yeah.
And that gave me like a vision to where I can move into any town and go, oh, if they could do that in Dayton, they can do it here.
Wow. Yeah.
And I saw them do it in Houston. Downtown Houston has so many buildings that were vacant, and now it's thriving. And it was vacant when I lived there and started to thrive right before I left. And now you go back and it's just like the hottest place downtown Houston. So when I moved here, I was like, oh my gosh, it hasn't hit here yet.
Yeah.
It's not here yet. I have an opportunity to be a part of that now.
So before we jump into
exciting.
that, why Roswell? Why move here? I mean, there's always that question.
Family circumstances.
Okay, because I was going to say, both people that live here and both that live out always say, why Roswell?
I know. I have rarely run into a person who just moved to Roswell because they came here and were like, oh, this is a cool place. I think I want to stay.
Yeah.
I have, since I've opened the shop, I have several baristas working for me who live in Roswell for reasons that, people asked them to come here and they decided to stay.
Okay.
But I came here because I was married at the time and my husband got a job at Leprino, the cheese factory. And I honestly thought I was going to move back to Fort Worth because the same thing happened in Fort Worth while I lived there.
I remember you and I inadvertently were living there at the same time.
Okay. And so you saw Sundance Square develop.
I actually wrote the manual for downtown parking and greeting program back in the early 90s. So I remember talking to you about that and I was just like, wow, I had a small part in it. I just was fortunate to be around really good people. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Fort Worth is another one of those towns that just has these amazing, prairie-style buildings that have the amazing Southwest designs to them that you just, were happening during the 20s and 30s. And they're still there. They didn't get torn down. And that's what I saw about Roswell is this place has obviously been through some hard times, but these buildings are still here. Thank goodness they're still here. And they are solid. I ended up buying the old J.C. Penney's building. Right.
Tell us about that. When you walk in, what was it that put you into the process of that's the one I want? What was?
Well, so I moved here with who is now my ex-husband. Our marriage was kind of coming apart at the time, and I didn't think I was going to stay here. I really thought I was going to go back to Fort Worth.
Yeah.
I moved here. And we decided to give it another try. And so I decided, you know what? I've always wanted to start a business, a coffee shop. I've been in, my career is finance, and I've been in commercial banking as a loan officer. So I made a lot of loans, and I've also been in mortgage lending. So I understand property. And my husband and I, my ex-husband and I, made a decent living on when we sold our properties when we moved. We knew how to pick our properties and sell them for a profit.
Nice.
So it's something that I was interested in. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to invest in this place then. If I'm going to try to make this marriage work, I'm going to make myself have to stay here.
Okay.
So, and I thought, and this is a good town to do it in because this town doesn't realize what a gem it is. It doesn't realize what it has right now.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that before. We feel like there's a lot of gold mines that are just waiting to be tapped.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have the vision, and my vision comes from seeing it happen over and over again. So I know it will happen. There's no question it will happen.
Yeah.
To me, a lot of people are like, oh, Roswell's, it can't happen here. That's what they said about downtown Houston. That's what they said about downtown Dayton.
Look at what you've done in your corner of the pond that you've created.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
So I started looking around for a place to open my coffee shop and also to invest in a property. Like I know I'm not going to make a living on a coffee shop. You can survive on a coffee shop, but you're not going to get rich on a coffee shop. And I'm not trying to get rich. I would like to have something to retire on.
Sure.
When I'm forced to go into a nursing home someday, I don't ever want to retire, but it would be nice to have a little something.
You're going to make them kick you out. Yeah.
They're going to be, give me those car keys, and I'll be fighting till I die. And so I was looking for a property that I thought I could make into something that would appreciate.
Okay.
There's an old church that was for sale at, I think it's Pennsylvania and 3rd. It's a white church, and it's so awesome looking. And it had been for sale for years. I could tell from the rolls. And I had my realtor show it to me, and gosh, I was like, man, this would be a great little coffee shop / reception type place where you can have parties and stuff. But there was no parking. And that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a rough problem.
So I kind of hem and hawed, and I kept looking around, and I was walking down Main Street looking at all the vacant buildings, and I looked in the window. Like, you didn't see it driving by, but you had to walk by, and I looked in the window of this Penney's buildings, and it said for sale. So I called the realtor and said, hey, let's go take a look at it, just on a whim.
Okay.
And we looked at it, and at the time, Penney's moved out of there in the 70s, the late 70s, when the mall went in. And it's sat vacant for I don't know how long.
Okay.
Long enough that it kind of started to fall apart. The roof started leaking.
Yeah.
And
I remember you did some very decent repairs when you moved in.
I did a lot, but the people who purchased it from between them and me did a lot too. Okay. They subdivided it into offices. They redid the electric and a lot of the plumbing. They did close, it's a 3-story building, and they closed off the top floor because it had had a lot of the damage. Okay. And they did mold remediation, but they just left it completely, like it's walking back in time when you go up there. Have you been up there?
You took me up for a glimpse long before you renovated the 2nd floor. And I even remember at that point showing me the old air
the big vents?
money carts.
The tube.
Yeah, the money
pneumatic
tubes and all that. Yeah.
And did I show you this is getting ahead of ourselves, but it had been divided into offices, and my side had been divided in half, so the other side was being leased out. Like, there was a tenant, an oxygen supply place, which is not really a great business to have on Main Street. Right. But it was paying the lease. Sure. And so I thought, well, the other side had been divided into, like, I had to take out 7 offices just to open up that front area. There was a waiting room, several other offices, a little reception area. And so I took all of that stuff down. But before then, it was pretty medical looking, clinical looking. It had been a small clinic. So it didn't look anything like it does now. But what really caught my eye was we got on a ladder. I was just really curious because it had drop ceilings, the fake drop ceilings. Yeah. I was really curious what was behind those ceilings. I wanted to see how far whoever did the renovations went in tearing things out. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted to see if there was original stuff in there still. Right. So I looked behind the ceiling, and I caught just a very narrow glimpse of the old steel ceiling tile. Yeah. And I was like, I'm in love. I know it's here. That stuff is here. I just have to uncover it. Yeah. And so from that moment on, I started purchasing the building, and haven't looked back. I've just slowly been peeling back the layers. I love the concept that you could see where it was. You'd watched other people do things,
And I've yet to hear anything in your statement or even over the years of, I don't know if this is possible. It's always, yeah, we're doing this. and I love that. I love that attitude. I love that energy. So you took it and you guys tore out all that stuff, crazy amount of work.
It took me 2 years.
I was going to say
do
crazy
it myself.
amount of work.
Something I didn't get to was that my ex-husband and I moved here because we had a trucking business that went out of business.
Okay.
And we lost all of our savings that we'd saved up a substantial amount of savings. We cashed all that out to pay off our debts rather than declare bankruptcy.
Okay.
So I came here and came into this with the attitude I didn't have anything to lose.
Interesting.
I know I don't have to protect my savings because I don't have any anymore.
So you might as well go for a win.
Yeah, and my kids are already off and doing great, so I don't have to worry about supporting them.
Yeah.
It's just me and him, and he had a great job.
So I have to ask, that falls apart. That part of life falls apart. You gave it another try. It just wasn't going to work. You stayed.
Because the older I've gotten...
it's like, wow.
Well, okay, I did... One of the reasons I said, hey, I'm going to invest here is that I fell in love with the community as soon as I got here. Excuse me, it's really windy outside and I'm not getting choked up yet. I may, but at this point I just need to take a sip.
Yep, it's allergies, guys, allergies.
It is. This community I was so impressed with it. I could tell it had been through a little bit with losing. You can still feel the vibes of losing that giant Air Force base.
Right.
It's obvious. And being an Air Force brat, I know what it looks like. So I could tell that it was wounded and pulling itself out of that. And I went and looked at the population records and how it had slowly gone up, never went backwards.
Right.
It just kept coming back up since the Air Force Base left. So I knew that it was growing at a healthy rate. No one was being like, oh, let's get the Toyota factory in here, and then they hire a bunch of people and then they close. I could tell it hadn't done that. That it was just like slowly growing, and I can do that. Because that's where I am. I don't have a bunch of money to throw into something. I need a community that can bear with me while I do this slowly
you
too.
Can grow with it.
And not only that, but I went to some meetings at the Roswell Community, Roswell RMAC, Roswell Museum and Art Center, which we are board members of.
Right.
And, it's like I just lost it for a minute there. I went to some meetings for that. I don't remember what they were talking about, but I met Lori Roof and I met Trey Nesselrod. I probably met you, some of the people at the paper. Everybody impressed me.
Wow.
It wasn't just that they were welcoming of me, which they were very welcoming of me, and that really felt great. But they are, competent, good people.
Yeah.
And another thing that astounded me, coming from Houston, that's where I moved from. I moved from near Fort Worth to here, but before that I was in Houston. The museums in Houston are world class, but you are never going to be on a board unless you have $1 million sitting in your bank account. Here we have world class museums, and I got asked to be on the board of directors. I mean, I don't feel like I'm not bragging about that. What I'm saying is it's amazing that I have access to being able to be a part of that.
That's good.
It felt so amazing. I mean, I was so honored to be asked to do anything. The Jazz Festival Committee. The fact that was another thing that hooked me. I moved here in May. The Jazz Festival happened the following October. I thought I was going to go listen to a bunch of local musicians playing at this jazz festival. And I was ready. I was like, I'll just drink wine. And, after a few glasses, it doesn't matter. I was blown away, literally blown away that they had these world-class musicians coming into Roswell to play for a full week. I could drink my glass of wine within touching, I could touch them. And it didn't cost me an arm and a leg.
It's like having your own private concerts.
It is.
Yeah,
It's just, it's phenomenal. And I know that I really feel like Roswell will get discovered it is getting more and more discovered.
Right.
I'm seeing people come here from places like San Francisco and Austin and going, wow, they can feel it happening.
Right.
They can feel the energy. But for now, it's our little secret that I'm okay with telling people about, but it's nice.
I love this side because I'm like you. I love to see what makes things tick. How do people think? Where do they come from? It's part of the reason I enjoy doing this, because of the neat little tidbits about what make you you. Why coffee? And then segue into how that's gone. What some of the stuff that's happened. You get this new brand up and running, something that hasn't been done here. I think for the most part we had national brand things, but I think when you opened, you might have been the first independent that was on a bigger scale. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I happen to love coffee, and there was not a mom and pop coffee shop here yet. I wanted to open a coffee shop back in the 90s, whenever mom and pops were really popular.
Okay.
Excuse me. And right about where it looked like it was going to be something I could get started on because of life, everything was falling into place. Starbucks started taking over the world.
Right.
And they were closing all the mom and pops by locating right next to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is not the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go up against Starbucks right now.
Right.
Well, a few years ago, Starbucks started to recede. And the mom and pops started popping up again. And I could tell this was the time to do it. So I've always wanted to open a coffee shop.
So this was something that's set in your heart for several decades.
Yeah. It's
wow.
You asked my ex-husband.
Wow.
We were married 28 years, and I never stopped talking about it.
It's just a matter of the right timing and right place.
Exactly.
Then. Wow.
Yeah, the right timing and right place, exactly. And this was it. This was a town that didn't have that yet. I was amazed and delighted that I could be the one to do it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give Roswell something that they didn't expect. I wanted to set the bar to a level that maybe they're not so used to right now.
Yeah.
Or they weren't at least 7 years ago when I started.
Okay.
My dream was for people to come from Austin and San Francisco and the UK and Australia and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got the best cup of coffee I've ever had in Roswell, New Mexico. Yeah. That is my goal.
Which, by the way, just for any listeners that aren't used to the Roswell atmosphere, wherever you're at around the world, we have close to 250,000 people from almost every country come here every
global,
year. So when you reference those places, they're actually coming. So
they're coming to downtown.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They will make special trips out of their way to come down here. They may be going cross country from LA to New York City, and they will come south just to see Roswell.
So I'm sure you've had just some incredible encounters with
delightful.
To use that word, encounters, with actual human beings, but people from other countries and things on a regular basis.
We've had Japanese people who can barely speak English at all, like they're just pointing at things.
Yeah.
The Australians love it because we have flat whites. And
okay.
We make good flat whites. Gosh, we've got a lot of people from Europe. We have some people from Nigeria and Kenya. Actually, it's just all over. I can't think of a country.
How cool is that?
We
you come to a small town in the middle of nowhere. We're about 3 hours from any major civilization. We've got some smaller places in between, but really, big, decent-sized cities.
Yeah.
And yet, you get to experience all these cultures just because you open up a cool coffee shop.
Within 2 blocks of the UFO Museum. That's a big part of it. I have a pretty good mix of tourists and locals for my income or my customer base. And the locals are slowly growing. Like, it just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because first of all, people here didn't expect to have something like this here.
Yeah.
And so they still are like amazed that there's something like that downtown right now.
You still come across new people that are I didn't know this was here.
Exactly. And funny. Wow, it's good. And
on
I'm
Main
surprised.
Street, nonetheless.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Why the brand Stellar? How did you settle on that? Was it?
I'm gonna have to give you a little bit more
I'm not
background.
going to feed you. I don't know this story, so I'm kind of curious as well.
Well, my ex-husband and I lost a son at 20 years old. He was 20. We lost him in it was 2006.
Okay.
To a motorcycle accident.
Wow.
And that changed us both. Mm-hmm. One thing I learned from that was that life is never certain. Like tomorrow is never a certainty. Mm-hmm. And I learned I had to let love in. I had to just open up my heart and not surround myself with my own making, but just let my flaws show and let love in, because otherwise I was just going to wither away.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I made the conscious decision. I've always been a very driven person, and, you know, make my decisions doing this. I'm not really super anal about stuff, but, you know, I kept control over my life, you know, and I probably had some barriers up over time, but I just dropped the barriers and said, I got to let love in, and not only let love in for me, but in order to not fall into that abyss that we get into when we're grieving, I had to love others. I had to start doing for others, because that was the only way I could sometimes get out of that spiral that I was going into. And I opened this shop. I started this business to help me heal and to help others heal, or to keep me healed. And to help heal others.
Wow.
Because we as people need to feel like we belong somewhere, and we need to feel accepted and not judged. Yeah. A lot of us find that in church. We find our people, and we are loved and supported by those people. Right. We find it in family. Mm-hmm. Stellar is all of that. Stellar is. It's a family. Mm-hmm. It's a house. It's a home. It's a living room. In a lot of ways, we are like a typical family. You know, my staff, we all have different personalities. Some of us kind of go off the deep end sometimes, but it doesn't mean we don't love you anymore. Right, it just means you can't work with us for now. Right. You know? And it's like, and I want every customer who walks in. My hope and goal. And my staff stands behind me, they're wonderful, is that when people walk in the door of Stellar, they feel like they are, they feel like they're in a place that I want their worries to fall away. Wow. I want them to suddenly, because we go around feeling, however wrong or right we are, we feel like we're judged all the time. You know, a lot of people are going, is my hair okay? Does my breath smell all right?
I think all of us carry that. Yeah.
And it's like, God, you know, I want people to just come in and let it go. Yeah. And feel like we care. Because we genuinely do care. I'm not there just to take your money. Yeah. I want the business to survive. Because if it doesn't, I can't do this. So this is kind of my service. So everything that I do to make sure that Ann Baker is solvent. Is so that I can. This is what I do.
So that you can reach out and give some people some little bit of
hope.
And
it doesn't. It heals
a little bit of life in their day.
And it creates.
Love that.
It creates an energy that's healthy. Wow. For me and you and my staff and everybody who comes into Stellar, you can feel it. And that is really what community should be. I think that's what community used to be more, when we all went to church together. Right. And when we all walked up and down when we had to walk to work and walk up and down the street to shop, we saw our neighbors, we talked to them, we felt like we belonged. Yeah. But we don't, it's not easy to do that anymore, even in a small town like Roswell. Right. But Stellar has, everybody comes to Stellar. It doesn't matter what church you belong to, what political part of the spectrum you are, whether you're from here or not, how long you've lived here, local, how much money you have. It doesn't, everybody comes to Stellar. And they can sit around the counter. They can feel like they belong. That's why I have a counter. I have a counter so that if you walk in there by yourself and you're feeling like you're kind of lonely, you can sit at the counter and eventually someone's going to come by and say, hey, how are you? What are you up to? I have several awesome baristas I could name by name, but they're all great. They will engage. They're interested.
They've always treated me like a king when I'm in there. So yeah.
Because they really are.
Yeah.
That's part of their orientation. I tell them, I want you to be friendly, but I want you to be genuine. And if you're not feeling good, if you're not feeling great, let me know. We'll work on it. Well, we can fill in your spot today, or we'll put you in a better mood. We'll do our best to get you in a better mood.
That's really cool.
And over the last 7 years, I have people who not only they share the same outlook on life that I have, and they are creating an energy of their own.
Yeah.
Like the bicycle shop that's opened in the back,
Right.
Moonrock Outfitters. They are taking that energy, and they came here with that energy, and they were just looking for a way to share it. And now they share it with Stellar, they share it with their Moonrock customers.
Yeah.
And we're working together to continue to put that. There's no other word for it but love.
Yeah.
Love is.
I
just a good thing.
love how you said you took something that was very intense in your life, something that no parent wishes to ever even think of or discuss.
And I don't wish it on anyone.
And yet not let that destroy you, but define you in a better way. That is so cool. And I love that. And the fact that it plays into how you operate business today is incredible.
It's because of the son I lost. He was an amazing person. And I can't let him down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Yeah. That is so cool.
He's rooting for me,
Yeah.
But it's not just him. It's all of our loved ones who've gone before us and those who are here.
Yeah.
I believe that heaven and earth are right here.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that there's another life after I die, but I don't know.
Yeah.
All I have is right here.
Okay.
So why not make heaven here while we're here?
Do you think, again, you and I are older generation of people. I like to think that we carry it well, but I don't know that we always do.
No, we're trying.
But
well, we can always think of ourselves that way.
But do you think like we're seeing it seems like we're on the verge of seeing a lot of this shift back. Like people are finally had enough of the social media game and are starting to get clued in that they were being pawns in a scheme to have attention and everything, and get back to what you're talking about?
I believe in the younger generation.
Yeah.
I really do. And I do believe in our generation too. But I have a huge amount of hope and faith in our younger generation.
It seems like they're really interested in bringing community back. And that excites me.
They believe in the right things.
Are you seeing that at the coffee shop?
So much.
Okay.
So much. And part of it's necessity. When I entered the career life, I was assuming that I would have the same opportunities that my parents did when they were moving up in the 60s and 70s. But when I got out of college in the late 80s, things are already starting to get really kind of hard. Like I graduated from UT San Antonio right in the middle of the oil bust of the 80s.
Okay.
It was bad.
So it was trauma. Yeah.
Yes, and I didn't think a lot of people coming out of college, my peers were not getting jobs. I feel very fortunate to have gotten a job at a commercial bank downtown and been trained to run a business and open a business and analyze businesses. And we've gone through a series of booms and busts, really, really high highs and low lows ever since. And I feel like the younger people who I'm meeting are saying, you know what, that's to us, my family's more important than my dad, who was gone all the time working, so hard.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's not worth it to me. And that's where, like, I love millennials. I love that attitude.
Yeah.
People are like, you can't get them to work. Well, it's not that you can't get them to work. It's that they have other priorities too.
Right.
Like, life is a priority to them, not work.
Yeah.
And I can respect that. I lived the work being a priority thing. I learned that it wasn't, thank goodness, through a lot of hard knocks. And now I'm on board with that. I'm on the same train. Nice.
So we'll shift. We've had a great talk, by the way. We're not done.
Okay.
But we're going to shift a little bit more. We've touched on some of it because you weave a lot of who you are into your purpose.
That's who I am.
And all of that too.
Yeah.
So that's actually very natural, which is cool. Some people are more compartmentalized. You've got it all webbed together, which is neat. I've enjoyed listening to it. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. We can't cover that in an hour.
Probably a little weird sounding too.
Everybody always says to me, well, I don't know if I can talk an hour. We get an hour every time. And they're usually like, man, I could have said more. So that means we'll book you again later, and then we'll delve into something that's interesting at that point. But let's talk. I like to always hear people's thoughts on business. That's what this podcast is about. People that are out there doing, succeeding at whatever success is their definition. We're not presuming what that is. But what are some things that you've learned along the way? You started something from nothing. You went into a city that wasn't booming. So it's not like you could just open it and here they come. And yet you've sustained, you've stayed. You talked about having side hustles that keep you open so that you don't, so that you can weather this that happens all the time. What are some things that you think of that you're like, either I wish I would have known, or I'm glad I knew, or, watch out for those kind of things?
I started out with
Actionable
a little bit
things.
of leg up because I'd been a business lender.
Yeah.
And so I'd seen businesses, go from just a business plan, to trying to start it, to going under or making it.
Okay.
And over the 20 years that I did that, I learned a lot about what it takes to make it.
What would you say that those things are?
I think number one, you hear it all the time, you got to have a passion for it.
Okay.
My passion, Stellar, just, it as you said, my personality is woven into it.
Okay.
And that is, therefore, my passion is in it.
Yeah.
It's hard. I respect people who just want to make $1 million off an idea. That's great. That's not what I am.
Okay.
I don't want to make $1 million. I'd love to. If I did, I'd probably give it away to CASA or something.
You're not going to turn it down, but it's not
No, I
your
wouldn't turn
driving
it down.
force. Yeah.
But,
Okay.
So my driving force is, the more lives I touch, the more successful I am. In a positive way, the more successful I am. And in order to do that, I have to stay solvent. I have to stay a viable business. And the more viable I am, the more I can reinvest and continue to grow that whole philosophy.
I like that.
So you have to start off with a great product. It has to be quality. Do not cut corners. And don't do something you don't know how to do. That's another thing. It's
good.
like, well, okay, I'm going to find something I'm passionate in, and then I'm going to be successful.
Yeah.
Well, you have to really,
not
because
that easy,
you're going
is
to
it?
be working at this.
Yeah.
When you first start your business, for the first however many years, you better love being there. Because seriously, you hear this is an old Triton. Everyone's heard this. You're going to be there a lot of hours, and you may end up hating it.
So you've been open how many years now?
We opened in 2014, so
Okay,
we're going
I was thinking
on
13,
5.
but I was off 1 year.
Well, we're
Okay.
5. We're going on 6,
Yeah.
so it was early.
So how much of it is still a grind?
Well, occasionally.
And I'm just talking real talk, for people that open businesses.
Number 2 is so you have to not mind being there. Like, it can't. I love being at Stellar. I love the smell of coffee every day, and I never get tired of it.
Okay.
I live upstairs, so I smell the coffee. It's okay.
Yeah.
I love people.
Yeah, that's something we didn't talk about too.
You have to
I'll come right back to this point.
If you do what I do, you better like people.
But you live on the 3rd floor now, right?
I live on the 2nd floor.
On the second floor.
I'm renovating.
You're still renovating. Okay.
It's a lot of work. I call it a glorified attic.
Okay. All right. I don't mean to rabbit trail too bad, but it's such a cool thing what you're doing with that building.
Because it's slow. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I did not want to get into debt because I'd already, I was like, I'm just going to do this slowly. And so stay out of debt as much as possible. Debt is handcuffs. It will make you lose sleep at night.
Right.
It will split up your relationships.
Yeah.
It'll turn you into a cranky, not fun person. So avoid debt as much as possible. And that means if you have to grow slowly, then grow slowly.
It seems like we're hearing more and more from all of the truly successful people, not the ones that think they are. Mm-hmm. That's a similar theme, is that it's this before you see that.
Yeah, even businesses that get lucky.
And stay steady and keep grinding and keep pushing. You found the same thing.
And do something and know what you know. For instance, I know coffee.
Okay.
And I know tea. I know beverages, but I don't know restaurant. I know coffee
Interesting.
shop.
Okay.
So we started off with a very limited number of food items that complemented the coffee, that went with the coffee and the tea and the other beverages that we were serving, because that I could handle. And I didn't want to go, I made sure that I did not do anything. I didn't have hours or product that I personally couldn't do all by myself if my staff all quit.
Wow.
Okay.
See, that's a cool insight, because that happens.
It does happen. and then your customers who think you're all great, or they're super excited about you, come in and you're closed because you're out of something or your staff quit, or keep your hours consistent. That's another super important thing.
Yeah, nice.
Especially for something like me, I have desserts, I have food. I've been a mom. I know what it takes to pack kids up into a car and promise them that they're going to get a vanilla bean blended ice drink at Stellar for being a good kid. Yeah. And then you get them there and I'm closed? No. Closed, I'm not ever going to put my customers through that. Good. So that's another thing. You post your hours. Yeah. So I started off with limited hours because that's all I could handle myself without burning out. Yeah. So I started opening at 7 and I closed at 2. 7 to 2, I can do that every day if I have to. I've got time to regenerate. Then I started getting a staff. We expanded to 5. Yeah. Then a better staff, more solid, more foundation. Expanded it to 7. A little bit more, expanded it to 9. And we found our perfect spot right there, 7 to 9. Yeah. And it hasn't let me down. Every once in a while, I have to work really incredibly long weeks, like when flu season hits and our staff is out. But that's another balance. I want my staff to be happy. So that's another thing. Hire quality people because they are the face of your business to your customers. Yeah, that's good. If they do not represent me, then my customer's not getting the stellar experience. They're getting something else. Wow. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. So my staff represents me. They're all individuals. We're not Robotrons, but they understand my philosophy and they buy into it and they believe in it. Yeah. And I love it. It makes me so happy. So then pay them a fair wage. What? People have to be able to survive. People have to live too? What? So I started off with my business plan, pricing my product so that I could pay a fair wage. Wow. And the staff comes before you because they're the ones that are working. Yeah. They're the ones who are representing you. You can't do that. You can't do it all. You have to have a staff that can do that. So pay them a fair wage. That's good. Be fair with them. Yeah. Be a fair employer. Treat them right. And then they'll stay. And then you don't end up wasting so much time training people over and over again. And you don't lose so much product because someone doesn't know how to do something right. Yeah. You don't lose customers because they didn't get something made right. The longer people stay with you, the customers love seeing the same people too. They fall in love with our staff. It doesn't mean that I expect you to stay with me forever. Sure. I want my my staff to fly. I want them to be happy. Some of them will grow with me. They'll stay with me. And I love the thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
Others will go and do other things. And I'm, very encouraging of that because there are other good people to come in.
You
and
had
fill
a
their
little
places.
heart in where they were headed, which is kind of a cool
Yeah,
honor
it's fun.
too, huh?
And I get to stay in touch with them.
Yeah.
But Roswell has a lot of good, there is good potential employment here, people to employ. I don't call them my employees. I'm really adamant about calling them staff.
Okay.
Because to me, staff is more like my team.
Mm-hmm.
They're not my employees. They are, I know it's a semantics thing.
No,
but
I'm enjoying the philosophy.
They do work for me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a technical fact.
Right.
But I can't just employ people who aren't part of my team. They've got to be
Wow.
they've got to be part of my team.
That's good.
Or things aren't going to work the way the Ann Baker philosophy.
Yeah.
So I want them to think of themselves as part of the team because they are. So I don't call I stay away from the word employee. They're my staff. I am just the chair of this committee here that, and my ultimate goal is that I would love to make it a cooperative. I would love for them to be invested in it.
Okay.
We're moving toward that. So
you're providing long-term opportunity too, and you're planning it. That's so cool.
So
wow.
don't make your model. Don't create a model that you cannot personally hold up with your own two hands and shoulders.
Okay.
Don't get into debt that's going to make you lose your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to stay focused and you've got to stay happy and positive. 3, hire good people and pay them a fair wage so they'll stay with you.
Yeah.
And treat them right. Oh, and then wait, after the don't make a model that you can't support yourself, have a great product.
Yeah, I remember.
You got to stick with that.
Because I was going to bring that back up if you didn't. But yes, I was
so
listening.
I'd say those would be like the most important things. And then you can just grow and grow slowly. Don't ever do something that you don't know how to do.
Yeah.
Don't learn it. We've done that. Like when we've expanded our menu, but I do not introduce a new menu until I know that I can personally make everything on that menu and I can make it really well.
Well, I like what you said there because we've all been to a shop of some sort. I'll say it's never happened in Roswell, but
sad to see.
But we go into shops and they're doing something that they shouldn't be touching, and you were excited, and now you walk away going, I don't know if I want to come back.
Great. But,
and it's hard to get excited to return.
Yes.
So I love what you said there is, as best as possible, I call it home runs, try to hit one. And if you can't, maybe wait and do it when it is a home run.
It's better to wait. It's better to wait, even though it's really tempting to throw something out there really fast that, this is gonna make me $1 million. I found a sorbet machine for a really low price. Let's get it and let's start making sorbet tomorrow.
Yeah.
I would never do something like that.
Yeah.
It's just a bad idea.
People talk, don't they?
Yeah. Well, and people don't do it so much anymore. It's interesting, but for the first 3 years, I had a lot of customers who would come in and say, you should do this.
Wow.
And you should do that. And I had, staff would be the same way. And I try not to do that to other business owners.
Yeah.
Because it's probably very likely that they've already thought about that.
Yeah, that's good.
And if they're smart, they've said no, and they know why they said no.
I say, you knew your listening to you today, you knew your lane, and you've worked it.
Yes. Stay in your lane.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's I'm still working at it.
Yeah.
And a restaurant can never say, I'm a success. You are any business really.
Yeah.
You have to keep working at it. You have to stay on top of things, on top of the trends, on top of what people want. I've had people come in, I was a little concerned there for a while because I had one review, a customer said we were a typical hipster place. The coffee was good and the decor was great, but it was obvious they didn't like hipsters.
Okay.
And I don't consider myself a hipster, but they did. They had us in a niche.
Translated
so
that.
If the whole world starts to think of us as something that they don't like, well, we may have to rethink our branding.
If that's your target audience, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
If that's your target, again, that's another thing. You can't please everybody.
Yeah.
You have to know.
What do you mean? You can't provide every product that was ever made and make sure that,
You can get Allsup's coffee for cheaper. Yes.
Sure.
But do you realize that, do you care that the beans that you're getting at Stellar were roasted last week?
Yeah. There's a reason that it's cheaper.
And they're the highest quality beans that you can get in this country.
Yeah.
If you care, then that's why it costs more here.
And that's your audience.
If you don't care, then that's fine.
Going for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'll drink Allsup's coffee if I have to.
Well, we are reaching the end of our time. Is there anything in about a 60-second period that when I contacted you, like, ooh, I'd love to mention this or talk about that, or have we?
Well, you know me. I'm going to be a cheerleader for Roswell.
Okay.
Anytime, every chance I have, I'm going to be all about how this town is it's just like a little hidden treasure.
Yeah.
And the people who realize that are the kind of people that I want to be around. And I love living here. And I hope that I can make Stellar into, like, eventually my goal is to have the whole place renovated and people living upstairs. And then I would love to be able to expand out.
Play with some other ideas.
Yeah.
Birth some new babies.
It is a child. It literally is a child. Takes a lot of belief and courage to jump in and do it, but it's worth it.
Well, Ann, thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with us and to share your heart and a little bit of your story. And how can people connect with you? Is just coming by the coffee shop? You want to talk about that? Is there a site? Is there...
Yes, Facebook is a great way. We check our messenger messages, so you can message us there. You can also, come by and get my business card. It has my email, my phone number, my cell number. Text me. I don't answer the phone very much because I don't have time, but text is great. And emails are great.
And they just go for Stellar Coffee Company?
Stellar Coffee Co.
Okay.
You can find us on Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor.
Wonderful.
And Facebook.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed, and I'm a fan. I appreciate what you do in our city.
Likewise. It's very mutual.
All right. If you like today's program, subscribe to the format you are on, whether it be YouTube or a podcast channel. If you'd like to connect with me, go to DonovanFulkerson.com. It has details about myself, our companies, and how to connect. If you're following our social media, my personal pages, well, it's just that. It has a lot of personal things, including spiritual content and details that I find interesting to me. Our social accounts for our businesses, obviously, is that. There will be products and day-to-day activities and things that relate to those specific companies. Thank you for connecting. Please share and get the word out. We'll see you next time.